skill of sharing benefits and growing together, the seed of sustainability. In a world full of competition, people are often drawn into the endless cycle of winning and losing, of gaining and losing. Yet there is a truth proven by both ancient wisdom and modern life. If we only think about ourselves, the path we walk will always be narrow and short. But if we know how to share benefits and walk alongside others, we will open a vast doorway that leads to lasting and sustainable growth. Sharing benefits, the measure of character and self-respect. In today's society, people often think that to succeed, they must outdo others and take all the benefits for themselves. But think carefully. Can a person truly be respected and stand tall if they only know how to hold everything tightly while ignoring those around them? Wealth may bring temporary comfort, but it is character and respect that determine long-term standing. A person who is only obsessed with hoarding may be rich in money, but they are poor in humanity. And once they lose the trust of others, their wealth becomes nothing but a meaningless burden. Remember, the greatest value of a human being does not lie in what we keep, but in what we are willing to share. You may earn a lot, but if you keep it all to yourself, you will live in constant fear of losing it, under the judgmental eyes of others. On the other hand, if you open your heart to share benefits, you will receive respect, trust, and genuine affection. Things money can never buy. Sharing benefits does not make you lose out. Rather, it is the true measure of whether you dare to stand firm with your self-respect. The wise understand that if you want to go far, you cannot walk alone. The selfish, however, will eventually push themselves into isolation. Often, the way you handle benefits shows whether you are a person of noble character or merely someone small-minded and greedy. Ask yourself, do you want to be remembered as someone rich in wealth but poor in dignity, or as a person with a generous heart, admired and respected by others? Do not let greed blur your true worth. Self-respect is the foundation that allows us to reach the height of success. And self-respect is only complete when we know how to share benefits, to think of others, and to leave behind a legacy of kindness. If you find these reflections worth pondering, please leave us a like, a channel subscription, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more philosophies that can help each of us live a life of meaning and value. Sharing benefits, the path to nurturing trust and long-lasting bonds. There is something that seems simple, yet is so hard for many people to accept. When we give, we do not truly lose. Rather, we are planting seeds for a harvest that will come later. In ordinary relationships, among friends, colleagues, family, or even business partners, sharing benefits is the bridge that allows people to find each other in trust. We cannot live apart from community. Human beings need one another, rely on one another, and walk together along long and difficult journeys. Yet trust is fragile. Just one act of selfishness, just one time of putting our own interests above everything else, can cause us to lose far more than we ever expected. Think back in your own life. Have you ever truly felt grateful to someone simply because they were willing to share with you, even though they did not have much more than you did? Perhaps it was a friend who divided their meal with you when you were hungry, a colleague who didn't hesitate to share an opportunity, or a teacher who patiently guided you without expecting a reward. Those moments of generosity linger. They create a sense of connection that is long-lasting, a kind of trust that does not fade. The same is true in business. There are companies that choose to take the large slice for themselves, leaving only scraps for their employees or partners. They may become wealthy quickly, but they will also decline quickly. Employees will no longer feel committed, partners will no longer stay loyal, and customers will eventually turn away. Yet there are also companies that choose to share. They share profits fairly. They share opportunities to learn. They share responsibility with the community. And it is those companies that remain strong and endure. Sharing does not just create satisfaction, it sows the seeds of trust. And trust is the most solid foundation for any social relationship to stand firm against the storms of life. Sharing benefits does not always mean money. Sometimes it is advice, a little bit of time, a chance to connect someone with an opportunity, or simply emotional encouragement. These things may seem small, but they hold the power to lift an entire human being at the moment they need it most. Everyone, at some point, will feel weak. Everyone, at some point, will need a helping hand. And that hand, once extended, remains etched into the memory of the person who received it. That is why, in many relationships, people remain committed to one another for a lifetime, because they were once shared with, once supported, once walked beside. Those who know how to share benefits are never at a loss, because what they receive in return is not only material things, but also loyalty, respect, and genuine affection. In families, when parents are willing to share their time and listen to their children, the children learn to trust and open their hearts. In friendships, when one person truly thinks of the other, bonds last far longer. In marriage, when spouses share work, responsibilities, and even joys and sorrows, happiness becomes real. We often confuse sharing with sacrifice. But in truth, sharing is a wise form of investment. It is an investment in trust, in connection, in relationships that endure. The selfish may win once, but they will lose forever. Those who know how to share may give up a little in the short term, but they will win in the long run. Sharing benefits also carries the power to dissolve conflicts. When we put common interests above our own, petty disputes suddenly lose their meaning. A group that knows how to share will argue less and divide less, because everyone is looking in the same direction. That is how large organizations and strong communities are built, from individuals who know how to yield, who know how to share, who place the word we above the word I. Now imagine a society in which everyone thinks only for themselves, where everyone fights for the bigger piece. Surely, that would be a tense society, full of suspicion and conflict. On the other hand, if each person could share just a little, think of others just a little, lift one another up, and grow together, that society would be so much warmer and more peaceful. This world already has enough competition. If we keep living with the mindset of gain and loss, the greatest thing we end up losing is the peace within our own hearts. You may not become materially richer through sharing right away, but you will certainly become wealthier in the hearts of others. And sometimes it is precisely that wealth that carries us through difficult days. A heartfelt thank you, a look of trust, a firm handshake. These are intangible benefits that only those who know how to share will ever touch. And those intangible things can at times be more powerful than all the material wealth we could ever hold. Sharing benefits, a journey of spreading values and creating collective strength. If the first idea shows us that sharing benefits is a measure of character and self-respect, and the second highlights trust and long-lasting bonds, then this third idea expands on another crucial dimension. Sharing benefits is the path to spreading values and creating a power of resonance that exceeds the ability of any single individual. In nature, no living being can exist entirely on its own. A tree stretches out its leaves not only to photosynthesize for itself, but also to give shade and release oxygen for all creatures. A river flows across many lands, carrying fertile silk to nourish the fields and sustain entire communities. The bee diligently collects nectar not only to make honey for its hive, but also, often unknowingly, pollinates millions of flowers, enabling abundant harvests. Nature teaches us a profound lesson. Every value becomes sustainable only when it is shared and amplified. The same is true in society. An individual may be talented, an organization may be wealthy, but if all they do is hold on to their own benefits, their strength will quickly run out. On the other hand, when we learn to share, we create a new flow where values multiply many times over. Like a flame, if kept by one person, it dies out once the fuel is gone. But if passed along, thousands of torches can ignite, illuminating the entire sky. Sharing benefits is also a way of spreading our own values. A leader who shares rewards with their employees receives loyalty in return. An entrepreneur who shares opportunities with partners creates a sustainable network. A teacher who shares knowledge with students leaves behind an enduring legacy. The more one dares to share, the wider their values spread, not confined to a small circle, but reaching far, extending even beyond the limits of time. Even more importantly, sharing benefits creates collective strength. A small group that consists only of strong individuals may burn out quickly. But when they share benefits, they form a unified block where one person's strengths compensate for another's weaknesses. A community that knows how to share has an inner force greater than any one individual. This collective strength is why so many nations, businesses, and organizations can endure for hundreds of years. Consider the family, the smallest unit of society. If only one member hoards the benefits, if a husband thinks only of work, a wife thinks only of herself, or children think only of their own pleasures, that family will eventually fall apart. But when everyone shares, when a husband shares the burdens, when a wife shares her empathy, when children share responsibility, that home becomes the strongest anchor. Within sharing, love is nourished, trust is strengthened, and happiness is preserved. Friendship works the same way. A friendship based only on one-sided benefit quickly fades, but a friendship built on sharing, even if it's just a cup of tea, a moment of listening, or words of encouragement at the right time, can last a lifetime. What transforms friends into soulmates is not the number of joyful days spent together, but the number of times they shared both joy and sorrow, walking side by side through hardship. In business, many fear sharing benefits, thinking they will lose their share. Yet in truth, sharing is what expands the pie of profits. A company that dares to divide revenue fairly with partners builds long-term loyalty and mutual growth. A brand that shares benefits with its customers through real value and sincere service earns unwavering loyalty. And an organization that shares benefits with society and the community will find itself protected and supported by the very people it serves. Sharing benefits does not weaken us. On the contrary, it strengthens us because we are no longer alone. This is the beautiful paradox of life. When we give, we actually gain more. When we hold tightly, we are more likely to lose. Those who live only to keep for themselves will eventually find themselves poor in loneliness. Those who share will discover themselves rich in the embrace of a whole community. Modern society often emphasizes competition, making many forget the power of sharing. But if you look closely, the most successful individuals, groups, and companies are those who knew how to divide the portion wisely. They don't always keep the largest slice. They know when to yield to preserve trust, when to give in order to receive even more. True wisdom does not lie in hoarding benefits for oneself, but in letting those benefits flow outward to others. There is a saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And to go together, sharing benefits is indispensable. It is the key to transforming a loose group of people into a strong team and a fragile community into a resilient collective. Sharing benefits is also a form of responsibility. Those who understand the true value of success never keep everything for themselves, because they know success is never the work of one person alone, but the result of many hands and hearts. When a leader shares achievements with the team, they are not only giving away benefits, but also bestowing recognition and gratitude. This deepens loyalty, strengthens unity, and builds lasting strength. Now imagine, one day you achieve great success. Would you rather stand on that peak alone in the cold of isolation, or have companions by your side rejoicing together? The answer is clear. True happiness only exists when there is someone to share it with. And to have that, we must first learn how to share. Sharing benefits. The art of balancing between the self and the collective. In every relationship, whether personal or collective, there is always an invisible tug-of-war between the self and the group. Every human being has the instinct to keep as much as possible for themselves. That is natural. Yet society does not endure because of isolated selves. It exists because of the ability to harmonize, to share, and to place common interests above individual gain. That is why the skill of sharing benefits is, at its core, the art of balance, knowing how to preserve what is rightfully ours while also yielding to others in order to maintain harmony and grow together. If an individual insists only on asserting their ego and prioritizing personal gain, they may achieve some short-term victories. But eventually, as relationships around them collapse, as colleagues distance themselves, and as friendships cool, that ego becomes lonely. On the other hand, if a person lives only for the group, sacrificing all of their own share, they will eventually run dry and harbor resentment. Thus, sharing benefits is not about giving everything away, nor about keeping everything for oneself. It is about moderation. It is about knowing how much is enough so that we are not at a loss, and how much is just right so that others feel valued. In the workplace, a wise leader is one who knows how to divide success. If they claim all the credit, they may enjoy short-lived praise, but will soon lose the loyalty of their team. If they share credit fairly, they will gain not only collective results, but also long-term trust and commitment. This art of balance is the very secret to retaining talent and building strong organizations. Within the family, balancing interests is even more vital. Many marriages have fallen apart simply because one partner thinks only of themselves. A husband focused solely on his career while ignoring his wife's hardships, or a wife who clings only to her own happiness while neglecting her husband's worries. When the self grows too large, the we disappears. A lasting family is one in which each person thinks of themselves, but also of each other, where each holds on to what is fair while sharing the rest in order to preserve the home. The same applies to friendship. A friendship where one person always wants to receive without ever giving will quickly fade. True friendship lasts when both know how to share benefits, when one is willing to yield opportunities, when one is willing to listen instead of always speaking about themselves. Balancing the self and the collective in friendship is the foundation for bonds that last a lifetime. A society works in the same way. If every individual thinks only of themselves, that society will fragment and weaken. But if people know how to balance, placing shared interests just a little higher than personal ones, society becomes cohesive and sustainable. This does not mean erasing individuality. It means blending the individual into the group. A wise person is one who knows how to live for themselves, but also for others, and it is precisely this balance that allows them to be embraced by their community. The art of sharing benefits also lies in knowing when to stop. Human beings always want more, but without restraint, greed destroys everything. Those who know how to share understand that holding on to more than what is necessary does not make them happier. It only erodes trust. Yielding a little, sharing a little, often brings greater peace of mind than keeping everything. We could say that the skill of sharing benefits is not merely an action, but an entire way of life. It is an attitude of careful thought, of regulating between self and group, between individual rights and collective gain. People who master this skill create harmonious spaces where everyone feels respected and is able to move forward together. And because of this, they naturally become individuals who are loved, trusted, and accompanied for the long run. Sharing benefits in the end is a wise way of living. It means daring to keep enough for survival while daring to give away enough for the community to grow. It is the only way to maintain balance so that no one feels left behind, so that the self does not overshadow the collective, and so that the collective does not erase the individual self. Sharing benefits, planting seeds for a sustainable future. People often focus only on immediate gains and forget that what we do today becomes the foundation for tomorrow. Many rush to take the largest share for themselves, even at the expense of others' opportunities, unaware that such an act is like cutting off young branches and leaving no shade for the future. Sharing benefits is not only an action of the present, it is the planting of seeds for a sustainable future. In business, a company that shares benefits with employees, partners, and the community does not only generate short-term profits, but also builds credibility and long-term reputation. That credibility is an intangible yet invaluable asset, allowing the company to survive crises and harsh competition. Countless corporations have lasted for centuries, not because they always kept the largest portion, but because they knew how to share so that everyone could rise together. Their willingness to share became a shield that protected them through upheavals. In personal life, those who share learning opportunities with friends, who pass down what they know to the next generation, are planting seeds for continued growth. A teacher who does not keep knowledge to themselves, but gives wholeheartedly, leaves an imprint not only on one generation of students, but on many generations to come. Parents who share their life lessons with their children give them stronger tools for the future, helping them face challenges without collapsing. The future cannot be built on selfishness. A community made up of individuals who only hoard for themselves will eventually collapse. But a community where people share, support, and think of one another creates an inner strength that cannot be broken. That is why many traditional villages, family lineages, and organizations still exist and thrive after hundreds of years, because they were founded on a culture of sharing, where one generation plants the seeds and the next nurtures them to grow. Sharing benefits is also a lesson in responsibility to future generations. We live on a finite planet. If we exploit and keep everything for ourselves, our descendants will pay the price. But if we learn to share resources to protect and preserve them, we live not only for today, but also for tomorrow. In this sense, sharing benefits extends beyond individuals or small communities. It becomes a global responsibility, the duty to build a sustainable world for those yet to come. Interestingly, when we share, we also plant seeds for ourselves. Perhaps today we yield an opportunity to someone else, but tomorrow a new opportunity will come knocking, because the world always moves by the law of cause and effect. People may forget what you said or did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And the feeling of being supported, of being valued, compels them to return the favor when you are the one in need. When viewed more broadly, sharing benefits becomes a form of spiritual legacy. Wealth can vanish, money can be spent, but the way we share, the values we plant, remains in the memories of others, in communities, and in the future. A selfish person may be remembered as temporarily successful, but one who knows how to share will be remembered as great, because they leave behind not just results, but a legacy of humanity. In the long arc of life, sharing benefits does not diminish us. Rather, it is the passport to longevity. It is like planting a seed in the earth. You may no longer hold the seed in your hand, but in return, you gain a tree, blossoms, fruits, and shade for generations you may never meet. That is the deepest meaning of sustainable growth. We must ask ourselves, what do we want to leave behind when we pass through this life? A few fading material possessions, or a legacy of sharing that continues to sprout in the hearts of others, spreading across generations? The answer reveals not only wisdom, but also the character and stature of each person, sharing as the path toward a sustainable future. Looking back on the entire journey, we can see that sharing benefits is not merely a skill, but a philosophy of life. Idea 1 showed us that sharing benefits is the measure of character and self-respect. A person may be wealthy, but if they never think of others, they will always remain poor in spirit. Idea 2 highlighted the dimension of trust and connection, teaching us that only through sharing do people find one another and walk together in long-lasting companionship. Idea 3 emphasized the power of resonance, showing that when benefits are shared, the values of each individual multiply into collective strength. Idea 4 reminded us of balance between the self and the group, so that each person keeps what is rightfully theirs while contributing to harmony as a whole. Idea 5 broadened the picture into the long term, teaching us that sharing is planting seeds for a sustainable future, one that today's and tomorrow's generations alike will inherit. Taken together, these ideas reveal an undeniable truth. Only when we share do we truly become strong and happy. A lonely success cannot be called complete success. A life lived only for hoarding without giving resembles a river blocked at its source. Sooner or later it will run dry. But a life that shares is like flowing water. The more it runs, the more abundant it becomes, nourishing itself and everyone around it. In a world driven by competition, sharing benefits does not make us weaker, it makes us stronger. It gives us allies instead of adversaries, friends instead of strangers, a community instead of isolation. It transforms fleeting relationships into lasting ones, small victories into a shared legacy. Most importantly, it makes our journey meaningful, for we live not only for ourselves, but also for others and for the generations to come. We may say that sharing benefits is the seed of sustainability. Every time we give, we plant a seed. Some seeds sprout quickly, others wait for a future season. But none are ever meaningless. The universe is fair, kindness is always repaid, and sharing always comes back in some form, whether as trust, affection, or unexpected opportunities that arrive just when we need them most. If each person learns to share, families will be warmer, friendships will last, and society will experience less conflict. If each business shares benefits, employees will work with loyalty, customers will remain faithful, and partners will stay committed. If each community shares, the world will be less divided and more compassionate. And if today's generation learns to share, future generations will inherit a stronger and more sustainable foundation. Every one of us must one day leave this life behind. The question is not how much we take with us, but what we leave behind. Those who live selfishly may leave money, but those who know how to share leave a legacy of values. And that legacy is what grants a person true immortality. So ask yourself, do you want to be remembered as someone who kept much only for themselves, or as someone who planted seeds of value and spread them for the good of all? The answer lies in the way you choose to share today. If you found these reflections meaningful, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so we can continue spreading timeless values, learning together the art of sharing, and walking side by side toward a future that is sustainable, fulfilling, and truly human.